This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys as always for listening. My name is Chris Blades, and I want to remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of when we drop our latest stuff. If you could please, as well, give us a 5-star rating. RSNS review, be very appreciated, very helpful. Allows us to see what you guys like, what you guys didn't like, ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media. So you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss all the fun stuff people like to do on social media. Like I said, you can find us there. And being as we are all on social media nowadays, a lot of things have been discussed continually. And one of those things has been whether or not this NFL draft was going to take place. Now, it is officially taking place, as we talked about on this podcast, and obviously, as you probably heard, if you've been paying attention to the sports, different sports outlets. Which, I mean, in fairness, if you haven't, understandably so, there's no live games. There's not really that much for them to talk about on the day-to-day regular basis. But they still find time, as we do here, find time and find things to discuss. But it seems like certain people have reached their breaking point in terms of the NFL draft taking place still. And that person, well, one of those people, I'm not going to single him out completely, but one of those people is Adam Schefter of ESPN. He reached his breaking point. I think it was on Get Up. Yeah, I believe it was on Get Up on Wednesday. He will. So this is from. I mean, obviously, this is not the video is from ESPN, but this is like an article from the New York Post talking about it. This is news. ESPN does not want Adam Schefter generating. With the NFL draft still scheduled to be held, shifted from Las Vegas, obviously, to a virtual experience due to the coronavirus pandemic. A little more than 3 weeks after the federal government announced, quite a few people may perish due to this coronavirus outbreak, which is, again, why we should all be taking it very seriously. This is not this little flu. This is not anything else that we've seen in our lifetime. This is much more serious. So again, stay inside. Don't leave your house if you don't have to. If you do have to leave your house, be safe. If you're one of the essential workers, try to stay safe as you can. Obviously, the supplies and different things, masks, gloves, ventilators, different things that you may need are in a lower supply, which is unfortunate. But again, try to stay as safe as you can. If you get sick or you feel sick, don't leave your house. Self-quarantine in your home for how many every days you need. If you are feeling really bad, make sure you get tested if you can. Obviously, it's easier in some states than others, but if you can, get tested. Like I said, all that stuff, just because it's not something to be taken lightly. And obviously, that was Schefter's point, which we will get to in a second. So after the government kind of laid out what we could be expecting over the next couple of months in terms of cases and deaths and different things, the broadcast behemoth's most recognizable reporter ripped the league for not postponing the event. ESPN is scheduled to broadcast the draft, during which Schefter is usually featured. The draft is happening only through the sheer force and determination and lack of foresight from the NFL, frankly. I would take that back. This was on SportsCenter, not on Get Up. This was on SportsCenter with SVP Scott Van Pelt. So I think this happened. So this might have happened late. I think this happened late Tuesday night, but obviously it made the rounds early Wednesday morning. They are determined to put this on while there is carnage in the streets, Schefter said. you also said later that we will all want to see the days where we have the distractions of football, but OTAs, that's not happening. Off-season program, that's not happening. Then also the NFL commissioner has tried to stymie team officials from venting frustration over the draft time and sending out a memo last week, which we had discussed, that the stated public discussion of events relating to the draft serves no useful purpose and is grounds for disciplinary action. Excuse me. That obviously does not extend to Schefter because he doesn't work for the league, so he can say whatever he wants, and this is him saying whatever he wanted. And yeah, I guess this is just I respect and very much appreciate Schefter for being willing to take a stand on this and being willing to make such a strong statement, especially against, not his employer, because the NFL, ESPN isn't the one that's necessarily putting on the draft. The NFL pushed it back, then they, and obviously Schefter's actively talking about why it shouldn't go down. But I will say, from that standpoint, Schefter could probably relax just a little bit, because I don't think this is that bad in terms of, the worst things that people could possibly be doing during this time. And mainly because they have adapted to have it in a way that's not, like I said, it's not going to be in Vegas, it's not going to be on a stage, it's going to be more virtual. Most people won't even be allowed in their own team facilities. You're going to be, I don't know exactly what system they're going to use to, televise it, or obviously I know system they're going to use to televise it, but in terms of broadcasting, how they're going to get people to phone in or however you want to have their votes and whatever. I think they're going to set up a studio or something for the draft. So with that, it's not like the NFL's holding the draft as if nothing's going on. It's not even I guess, the wrestling, the WWE is doing it a little bit differently, but they're still holding all their events pretty much. They're just having it without fans, which, again, kind of strange. Especially since if one of their athletes have it, or one of their entertainers, whatever, wrestlers, I guess I should say, if one of the wrestlers have it, then, if they're all in there, you're in close combat with another wrestler, maybe multiple other wrestlers, depending on the amount of people in the match, or in close contact with the ref. If the ref may have it, if any of the commentators have it, then you risk the whole lot of them getting it. So that is a little bit strange to me, that they're just all right, we just want to have fans, we'll do everything else as normal. And I get it from their perspective, they just want to keep entertaining people. But at the same time, it's that doesn't seem like the safest thing to do, because you don't really know who does and who doesn't have, unless you're testing these people continuously. Because, unless you're the governor of Georgia, then you do know that asymptomatic people don't, can pass on the disease, which was, again, sidebar, but that's a wild thing for this guy to say, that he just found out, today, Wednesday or Thursday, that was a possibility, as if they hadn't been met. That's literally the whole reason the league shut down, was because a person who didn't have any symptoms contracted disease, contracted, the virus, then passed it along to his teammates, potentially other players. It's literally why there's no sports right now, because that's what happened. So I don't know what he was listening to or wasn't listening to, but that was just a wild thing to say. Like I said, separate point, but that was just, when I saw that earlier today, I was how could you say that and be the leader of a state and expect people to be able to trust you with their lives? I don't know. It's wild. But yeah, so as I'm saying, the draft is happening in a safer way. And also, with the thing with this is that if you, there's, like he did point out, there's no OTs, there's no off-season programs, so it doesn't really matter. But the issue is always going to be, if the NFL thinks they can get play started in September, whether it's with fans, without fans, that's probably going to be without fans, but if they think that's a possibility, and they kind of got to keep everything on track, and obviously delaying or pushing back or postponing, whatever you want to call it, the draft is pushing back the timeline of the season. Because again, everything is scheduled out for a specific reason. Obviously, normally it'd be for off-season programs and stuff, which those aren't happening. So I get why maybe you could push it back. But again, if you have the draft, say in June or July, then all right, then when do you start training camp? When do you start the off-season stuff? Because it's you can't just, I don't think you can have the draft and go right into training camp assuming everything's back to normal, relatively speaking, in July. I don't think that's not a possibility that you can do that. I don't think. That's not a thing that I don't think you would just be able to do. So what I'm saying with that, then it's like, all right, so then when does the timeline start? Or because, again, if you push one thing back, that means you basically got to push everything back. So that's the reason why I think the NFL is holding out as much as they can. So if they can have an event that doesn't need everybody to be in the room, congregate together, then why not have it? And you see there's still like a lot of shows are still going on. Like it's not like they didn't just cancel all sports shows. Most people are just doing them from their homes or via like webcam or Skype or Zoom or whatever application you're using for. But it's not like they haven't stopped. You can still do the show or do the production without all the people in the room that are normally in the room. And the NFL draft, like I said, is no different. You can do it all virtually. It's not like it's the most. You're literally phoning in and then notifying a person there, then they're notifying the commissioner. Like I understand his point. Like, why is this going on? Nothing else is going on. But also, like, this is going on because it can go on. If other sports could go on, they would be going on right now. It's just the fact that none of them can go on at the moment as currently constructed because, again, you're still trying to siphon through who does and who doesn't have it with the disease. And that was obviously the reason why the NBA had to shut down because they had a couple guys that had it and you didn't know who else had it, so you couldn't risk it. And then everyone else just filed suit because they knew it was serious. But it's not like I'm saying you don't need to do anything fancy. You don't need to do anything special. You don't need to have fans there. You don't need to have the draftees there. You can do it all virtually. So, while, again, I understand Schefter's point. I respect him for being willing to speak out so strongly on this. But it was just like, why would you not have the draft? And also at the same time, like, at least this gives people something to look forward to. Like, if we didn't have this, like, literally we just have the ESPN, like, we just have the MJ doc, which we didn't know about until earlier this week that we were going to get it. And then, like, old games. And then, like, Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, wherever you go to, Disney Plus, wherever you go to watch, like, your TV shows. Yeah, that's it. You don't got anything else to look forward to. And definitely not in terms of sports. It's like there's literally nothing but old stuff to watch. So it's like if there's at least a new event that's going on that people can be entertained by and tuned into, why, if you can put it on, why not have it? That's why these teams are trying to do, or these leagues are trying to do different, like, live stream games or tournaments. That's why they're doing the 2K tournament, just to give people something to watch. That's really all we're looking for, just some form of content. And then, like I said, if the NFL can put that on, why would they not put it on? No one's telling the 2K League, nah, I don't do this. No one's telling, well, I guess it's really just the 2K League. But yeah, no one's telling the 2K League, like, why are you putting this on? There's all these people dying. Like, why should we be able to do this? Like, it's like, because we can. It's a video game. You can play it and you can play. You don't need to be in the same room as somebody to play against them in a video game. They did the same thing. I think there was some sort of Madden tournament I was seeing on Twitter that Derwin James was that won, and he won pretty handily again because you can just have a webcam and play the game, set it up, and just video the guys' reaction stuff. Like, it's not that hard to do, especially now in the 2020 where the technology is as advanced as it's ever been. We have many outlets and many ways in order to broadcast things remotely. It's not that complicated. So like I'm saying, again, I understand his point and I respect it, but I was like, Schefter, like, it was like the carnage part. I was like, whoa, all right. Well, I get your point because, again, people are having to build temporary hospitals in some cities where it's really bad. But I'm like, also, again, people are still working. People are still going to work. Stores are still open. Like I said, like it's like not everything isn't. You can't just shut everything down just because. I mean, well, you can. I'm not saying you shouldn't. Like, I'm not one of those people. Like, you should shut stuff down that's not important. But it's not they've shut down everything. Like, there's still stores open. There's still people can still travel. People can still walk outside their house. Stuff like that. It's like you're asking everything to just be shut down because this one thing's going on. And I mean everything in totality. Not that like things shouldn't be shut down if they're not important. But and I guess he's saying the NFL draft isn't important, which he may be right about that. But again, I'm saying if it can be put on in a safe way that's not going to help spread the virus and it's going to continue to allow us to flatten the curve, why would we not have it happen? That's my only point. It's just like, why would we not? Like, I don't see what having the NFL draft does to endanger more people to be exposed to the virus. Now, if Schefter can come up with that, then all right, I might be on your side. But for right now, I don't see that, so I'm like, why? I don't see the reason why not to have it. But maybe that's just me. Maybe you guys disagree, but that's just how I feel. I'm just like, why not? Why not? Why not? Shout out to Russell Westbrook. If you know, you know. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. So after this break, we're going to come back and want to talk about my thoughts on this idea of bubble cities, if you will, at the NBA. One of the owners talked about, and then they're trying to implement potentially in like Las Vegas or something to get the season started back up. And I mean, we talked about it in another week. Talked about like obviously the Chinese Basketball Association trying to model, the NBA trying to model how they can do things around that. But again, bubble cities, I'll give my opinion on it, but I don't think it's going to work. Like I said, I'll explain why, but I don't think it's going to work. And we'll just, like I said, and I'll discuss why right after the break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
We are back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, one of the more outspoken people throughout this entire process from the NBA standpoint, especially from the owners, has been Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban, and that has not stopped at all. Obviously, he does TV shows. He likes to talk. He's always out in front, always sitting courtside. Not even sitting courtside. He sits by like the players' benches. So again, he likes being in the spotlight. Not an issue for him. But Dallas Mavericks owner, Mark Cuban, obviously like I just said, who expressed optimism last week that an NBA season could resume as soon as mid-May, has backed off discussing any potential timetables for the league playing games. Hey, I have no idea, Cuban said Wednesday on ESPN's Get Up. I mean, the only thing I know is that we're going to put safety first and we're not going to take any chances. We're not going to do anything that risks the health of our players or our fans, our staff, the whole organization. So right now we don't have anything new. In an interview with a Dallas TV station published on March 21st, the Cuban side of people I've talked to at the CDC and other places people I've talked to at the CDC and other places for his admittedly optimistic projection that enough progress would be made on the coronavirus crisis for the NBA to return in middle of May. Well, you said that hopefully his people told him that hopefully they'd be able to turn in the middle of May, as we've already talked about. The Chinese Basketball Association had a setback, so the season they were supposed to start up pretty soon. They're not even no one knows when they're going to start. So that's another issue. Cuban said also that all the experts have got to say it'll be absolutely safe. We cannot put anything ahead of the health and safety of our players and staff. That's it. It's such a moving target. Nobody really has specifics. I mean, I haven't had any conversation where anybody's even discussed an actual date at this point. Like I said, the CBA, like we talked about in the last episode, talked about splitting up its 20 teams and sending them to 2 different cities to play in empty arenas in about a month. The NBA could consider similar plans of creating a quarantine community at a neutral site to play games without fans at some point. And I think that was the thing, is that people were saying that could very well be in Las Vegas. Just, I guess, this whole idea of like a bubble city, which I hadn't officially talked about it being in Vegas, but that is what at least the NBA had floated. and there's actually a piece which I kind of agree on it at USA Today. It was talking about how Cowboys should burst the bubble on that, but let's see okay, so you could have one of the casinos in Vegas that are currently closed, which is kind of nuts. Open up and like it'll be empty. You could use it then. Maybe you could do it in the Bahamas or something. You could set up like a new, like we talked about. You could set up like a new arena in like a random state, or like just like a random area where there's no coronavirus. And like we said, like my whole thing is I just think everybody in every sports league, I don't care if you're in America, I don't care if you're in Europe, I don't care if you're in Asia, it doesn't really matter. Just stop. Just stop trying to start the stuff back up. Just stop. It's not going to happen right now. I don't care what kind of precautions, what kind of safety measures you put in. Right now, as currently constructed, things are not going to happen with fans, without fans. It really doesn't matter. It's not going to work. Like I said, if China and South Korea, maybe not China because it can you take with 100% certainty everything that comes out of there? Maybe not. But at least we know that they've kind of corralled this to a degree. And obviously South Korea has been, as we said, lauded for their ability to kind of quell this pretty quickly. If they can't start their sports back up, how can anybody anywhere else expect to start anything up anytime soon? China, South Korea, I know they had their first confirmed case when we did, which is sometime in January. So it's now going on February, March. We'll be in April. So going on like 3+ months since their first confirmed case. And again, they haven't started anything back up yet. And they were like on top of it. I'm talking about everybody locked in their house. They're disinfecting streets. They're testing people's temperature left, right, and center. They're setting up drive-through testing. All the measures that we haven't fully implemented here in the States, everywhere. In some places have, like I said, are doing more testing and being more adamant about this than others. But like I said, not everybody's taking it as seriously as they should. So, like I said, we're behind them in that regard. And obviously China, they had it for a little bit longer, but obviously once it became serious, then they locked everything down, they shut everything down. They were able to, like I said, control it. Though I think there was a report out of Hong Kong today, either today or not today, because I'm recording this Thursday, but it's either Thursday or Wednesday that there was like a second wave, which again people have talked about, like there's a possibility that there's going to be a second wave of this, like you may slow it down and it'll pop back up again, because again, unless there's an actual vaccine or some sort of something like that, there's no way to stop the spread of it at the moment. And obviously there's been some tests about vaccines. Maybe they thought there was something about some new patch they're trying to put together in order that could work as a vaccine. They're trying to like fast track the human testing on it. So we'll see if that works. But like I said, until there's a working one that people can readily get, even if unfortunately they're gonna have to pay for it. Which again, this is a separate point. But I do, as much as I would like for things to be free and everything, like, this is not the first and won't be the last disease in the country. And, I mean, the way our healthcare system is set up, that nothing is really free, so I'm not surprised that this isn't free. Again, like, if you caught cancer right now, cancer treatment, chemo's not free. If you got an ambulance, you had some sort of accident, have to go to the ambulance isn't free. So, as much as it sounds good, in theory, to have this corona stuff be free, nothing's free in this country. That's just that happens. You live in a capitalistic society. That's basically built on money. This is just not going to happen. Again, quick sidebar. But, yeah, so then my main point was just that this idea that there will be some sort of bubble city that could work for any sport just seems kind of far-fetched at this point in time. And like I said, this USA Today opinion piece kind of lays out some of the reasons why I kind of think this too. So, one of the points that said bringing an entire league into one location isn't just about the 450 players under contract. It says several hundred more coaches, front office personnel, video coordinators, trainers, medical staff, equipment staff, TV broadcast folks, cameramen, announcers, not to mention any G League players that may have to be signed in case of injury. How long would you have to be quarantined before they could be around each other? Also, I was thinking of, like, because Rich Eisen was talking about this on his radio show, and he kind of made the point, so it's like, all right, you gotta quarantine everybody for 14 days, like test everybody, then quarantine them for 14 days before you even travel to the place. Then you have to make sure everybody's good, and if they're not good, then that's a whole separate basket of things we got to deal with. But make sure everybody's good. Then you fly to wherever the city is. Then when everybody lands, you probably got to test them again, quarantine them for another 14 days just to make sure again that everything's good. Then you go from there. So I'm saying that's like you have to plan everything about a month out, and that's even before you start practicing. Like you can't practice, you can't do workouts as a team. You can't like get your body ready. None of that stuff. So I'm saying you can't just like hop off. You can't just have people get tested, hop on a plane, and then go. Because again, we don't have the test where you know right away if you do or don't have it. I mean, again, they're getting quicker, it seems like, but we don't have the test where it's like instantaneous, like 5, 10, 20 minutes, a couple of hours, something like that. We don't have that readily available for the whole country. So because of that, you got to test the people. If it takes even if it takes like 2 days to come back, you still got to quarantine people just in case. Because if you find out that, one of these guys had it, now they were just on a plane with a bunch of other teammates plus coaches, medical staff, camera crews, trainers, all that stuff. You got to quarantine all those guys, so they were just if not in contact, near or around somebody that had the virus. So now they say you got to quarantine before you leave, you got to quarantine once you get there. So that's an extra month that you got to plan out the season for, which again I don't think anybody's really accounting for, but you have to allot that amount of time. And then also, so wherever they're staying, like, are you allowed to go anywhere else, or do you just have to stay in the hotel the whole time? And what is the protocol if you do have to leave for some kind of emergency? Like, if you, like, say something happened back with your family at home, or, like, somewhere else, or there's just, like, a situation in that city, say something happens and then they got to evacuate. There was like a big earthquake, or I guess if it was in Vegas, I don't really have hurricanes or anything, but if there was like a big earthquake, and he was like, all right, we want to keep people safe from like the aftershocks and stuff, like where do you go, and how do you travel? And then, like I said, the flying back home to see the family, like how does that work? Like, or do they have to, when they fly, they say they know somebody that's sick and has it, and again, it seems like a lot of people, you can't really see them in the hospital, which makes a lot of sense. You don't want to have people exposed to the virus. But then I'm saying if they fly on a plane to go back there, when they get back, do they still have to get tested again, or are you just gonna let them rock? Like it's a whole thing. What else? You also have, like, can family come and visit? Can girlfriends come and visit? Can, like, parents, siblings, like, are they allowed to bring people to the game? Like, it's just like, so you got to deal with all that. Like, can people come and see them, or are they just like closed off for a month plus or however long, whatever they decide to do, whether it's the tournament or full playoffs? Like, how would that work? And I said that you still got to get them fed, you still got to get their rooms clean, so you got to make sure if they're getting stuff catered, you got to make sure the catering staff is all healthy. If you have them clean, you got to make sure all the maids and all the people that help out in whatever hotel or wherever they're being held up at are all clean. They got to be testing those people consistently. You can't just test them and like, oh yeah, this guy's good, and then just not test them again, like, because you don't know when you're going to get it, especially since a lot of people that have it don't have any symptoms. And also, yeah, it's like whenever, like, if you got food, if you're just ordering out, then when you're getting food delivered, you got to be safe then. And then also just like the fact of, all right, what happens if one person gets it again? Does the league just get shut down for good? In fact, so now we're not even worried about trying to play the season again, which we shouldn't be, but if something were to happen, like I've said before, like if something happens, is it just done? Or do you just like postpone it? Do you just take that player away or take that team out? Like, how does this work? Because again, we saw when Gobert tested positive, they shut everything down quickly. Will they be willing to do the same thing again? Is a fair question to ask. That's what I'm saying. It's just like there's so many hoops and hurdles and things you got to go through just to even get this started, let alone have it play through the whole way with no hiccups, bumps, like I said, anybody catching anything. It just seems like at this point it doesn't seem worth it to me. And like I said, again, since every state's not doing or handling things the same way, we could be at this for a while as a country trying to combat this in terms of where we're still trying to get regular people back to their normal life, let alone athletes back to playing sports with or without fans. So if that's going to take a while, why are we even trying to play anything in the next 2 to 3 months. It just doesn't seem feasible. It doesn't seem practical to me. If we might not even, I thought it was Virginia, I think, or even I know Toronto said like you can't really now having any sporting events until like sometime in June. I thought Virginia initiated like a stay at home like through June where like you can't go unless you're like doing essential stuff, like you got to stay in your house through June, so that's a couple months away. So I'm saying multiple states aren't even opening stuff back up again until June. How are we going to be able to play a season in July or start a season back up in July? That doesn't seem practical to me. That's what I'm saying. Like even like there's so many different ideas that people have tried to come up with in order to get sports played again, which I do understand why, because again we miss it dearly. But at the same time, it's like right now it doesn't seem like there's a way in which it can get done, and like have it be safe. That's my whole point. Is that you could get they could play games right now if they really wanted to, but it's just like it's not going to be safe. And until you can assure it's going to be safe for not even, like I said, not just the players, the coaches, the broadcasters, the trainers, the medical staff, the front office execs, their people's family. Like, if you can't assure people that it's going to be safe, then how can you have it? Well, that's the kind of where I'm at with it. So, I don't think anything's going to happen with that. We kind of just I think it's going to be a dub. We just got to dub it and say, like, look, as great as it would be to continue to have this or to play it in some way, shape, or form, it's not going to happen this year. Or probably not going to happen this year, so we might as well just move on as a group and just get geared up for the next season. Because that seems like that's what's going to be the most likely scenario. It was just that we're going to have to cancel this and just play it next season. Because even now, unless you're going to start it back up in September, which again would be kind of weird. Like if you can't start it by some point in July, then I think you just got to let it go. Personally. It is unfortunate, but I think you just got to let it go. Because even if, like, by August, if you're playing, like, a random... Like, how do you even decide who's in the playoffs, who's out of the playoffs? You can't play a whole month of games in August. Because then, like I said, you're not going to be done until sometime in October, November. Then how do you play it next season? Like, you can't. That's what I'm saying. There's a certain deadline you probably have to reach. Which, again, the executives probably have had this discussion already. But there's got to be a certain deadline or date you have to reach where if we don't have games started by this, we can't have it. Because it's just going to mess up the next season. That's part of the issue with the draft getting pushed back potentially, was that if you push it back, then that ruins everything. There's a trickle-down effect. In terms of, like, it's going to back everything else up after it. And this is the same thing. The later you start this season, the later you can start the next season. So at a certain point, they might just got to be like, hey, we just got to worry about the next season and hope we can play that on time. Because right now it doesn't seem like it's going to get played. So yeah, bubble cities, they aren't going to work. Don't bring them up. At least, not to me. If they can get away, if it works, more power to the NBA. I'll give them all the credit in the world for getting it done properly. But as of right now, I don't see any sort of way, shape, or form it works anytime before, like, July. And even in July, it's still probably going to be risky. So you're just going to be hopeful that nothing happens. But, hey, we'll see. I've been wrong about things before. Maybe I'll be wrong about this, too. Or maybe I am. Maybe you guys think I am currently wrong now. But I'm just saying, as of this point, I just don't see a way that happens. But maybe that's just me. But on the more positive side, we have a guy that will soon be in the NBA. The guy's going to get drafted. He's not even in the league yet. That played professionally overseas this past year. I guess season. Not year, but season. That did a nice thing for the local team that he played on. So we'll talk about who that is and what they did. And just like I said, like just what a cool thing this was for that team and that community and all that stuff. So we'll talk about that person right after the break. So stay tuned.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, earlier today, it was reported, though it may not exactly be a done deal anymore, which is kind of interesting, I should say. But earlier today, it was reported that the LaMelo Ball, the potential number one overall pick in this upcoming draft, and with the help of his manager, had purchased his Australian NBL team. Like I said, in a statement later, the Illawarra, don't know if that's right, Hawks said that no sale had been completed. Apparently, like I said, his manager said it was a done deal. Apparently, it's not. On Friday, the Australian NBL said it was working with Simon Stratford, the current license holder of the team, on a number of options for what we hope will be a fruitful outcome for Illawarra and the NBL. The league, which confirmed discussions about Ball's interest in the team, also said it has final approval of any transfer license and that no application for the transfer had been made. LaMelo arrived in Australia in August as a part of the league's Next Stars program and established himself as a strong candidate to be the top pick in the draft. The 6'7" point guard averaged 17 points, 7.5 rebounds, and 7 assists in 12 games, with the Hawks posting back-to-back triple-doubles before a foot injury ended his season early. So like I said, not officially official yet, but regardless, still a very cool gesture by him and his team. Like I said, he's automatically eligible for the 2020 draft. Is the number 2 ranked prospect on ESPN. Will probably go. I guess we'll have to go through with the lottery and all that stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, so projected to be a top 2, top 3, maybe even the number 1 overall pick, depending on how this whole process goes with him. But apparently, Ball enjoyed his time in Australia so much that he decided to make the country a part of his long-term future, especially when financial issues threaten the team. Melo loves Illawarra fans. Jackson, his manager, Jermaine Jackson. I don't think it's the Jackson 5 Jermaine, but that'd be funny if it was. Was Jermaine the Jackson 5? I know it was obviously a Jackson. He would have to be. Yeah, he was assuming he was in the Jackson 5. Yeah, he loves the fans. Jackson told ESPN he loves that community. They opened their arms to him. They made us feel like we were at home. When we started hearing about the issues they were going through, we talked about it and decided let's own the team. He's going to be locked into his NBA career, but we are going to hire the right people to oversee everything. He wants to create the best basketball program possible for that community there. Jackson, okay, so obviously it's not Jermaine. Jackson from Jackson 5, who spent 5 years in the NBA along with stops in Italy, Spain, Greece, and elsewhere, said he expects there to be significant interest from the next generation of American stars in following in Ball's footsteps. That part I can't agree with, just because I think, especially if guys, a lot of the things in this society are very copycat. So you see somebody have success, they're going to try to see if they can replicate that for themselves. Obviously, if they can. And if guys can see LaMelo can bypass playing in the NCAA and go play professionally anywhere, though again, maybe this will change once the whole likeness thing kicks in and people can start making money while in college. But if they can see that you don't need to go to college in order to get drafted high, then it's like, all right, might as well play against grown men and professionals for a season. And then, like I said, get your body right, get your mind right, get your game right. So then go get drafted into the league, and obviously continue to play against grown men, which you won't be if you go to college, because again, everyone there is not a professional, so that's obviously a big difference. So that's the thing, is that at least playing overseas anywhere can give you the opportunity to play against the professionals. Now, he was not the first guy to go overseas and play. Other guys have done it. But I guess if he can be a top 3, top 2 pick and do it, because that part of it's rare. People still get drafted in the first round that do it, but not very many people are potentially the number 1 overall pick and don't go to college. Saying if there are guys out there that see that and be like, hey, I think who else? I think R.J. Hampton played in that league too, if I remember correctly. I think he got hurt as well, so that kind of shortened their season. And obviously they're not playing now because of the Rona. But I'm saying if guys see, like, all right, there's a path to the NBA, well, through this league to the NBA, which is, again, that's all. I mean, even non-Americans, but definitely Americans, that's all I care about, is getting to the NBA some way, somehow. We don't really matter how I do it, just as long as I get to the NBA. So if there's a path that doesn't include the NCAA, it's at least a viable, it's always at the very least a viable option. Which is, as a player, I assume that's all you want, just as many options as you can in order to get to where you want to go. So, also, like I said, along in this story, this is from ESPN, but he said, when high school kids hear LaMelo owns that team, they will want to come, apparently. We'll see about that. They'll know they will be taken care of. We're going to put the organization on steroids, which are illegal, so that's interesting. Building, I mean, obviously, it's not illegal for a franchise to be profitable on steroids, but obviously players. Building it into a program that guys want to play for. I'm in touch with several former NBA GMs that want to go there and help out, and I have a coach that won every championship you can imagine. Obviously, if you don't know the story about LaMelo and the Ball brothers, they were from Chino Hills, California, played in high school together. He's currently preparing in Chino Hills with his brothers Lonzo and LiAngelo, and hopes to use the purchase as an avenue to connect with many young fans who supported him in his time in Australia and give back to the basketball community. Jackson said Ball previously donated a month of his NBL salary to the victims of the Australian brushfire, which I do kind of remember him doing that. So, again, it shows that he at least cares about the community, though that's not that hard to do in theory when you live there. You obviously want to keep yourself safe as well. But, again, you didn't have to do that. Which not, and that's nice to see a kid at his age, only 18, at most 19 years old, is realizes things are bigger than just himself, which is obviously an important aspect to being a professional and being, especially in the social media world. You need to realize that while you are important, you can have an impact outside of the court or the field or player wherever you are. So I'm saying if you can use that properly, then obviously you'll be more successful. When Melo wants to do stuff in the summertime, we'll be there. We'll take a tour with his family all over Australia, doing basketball camps, connecting with the youth. He wants to inspire the next generation. That's how he was raised by his family. People have a perception of his father, but he has a heart of gold, and it trickles down to the kids, or to his kids. Well, I guess the father has a heart of gold, and it trickles down to his kids. His father didn't take him on a traditional route. He started his own sneaker company, Big Baller Brand. We've always talked about ownership. Melo wants kids to think big, especially in times like this. So, like I said, we'll see how it plays out. And even though it sounded like it was a done deal earlier, it's not officially a done deal yet. So we have to wait for it to be a done deal to see, or even to see if it becomes a done deal, to see if LaMelo will be officially an owner. But like I said, just the thought behind this is cool. Like I said, especially for a person of his age, because most people in 18, 19 years old aren't thinking about trying to own things. Now, obviously, entrepreneurship and stuff and being your own boss, all that stuff has become more prevalent, especially when you look on social media. People are always talking about that and how you don't have to be working a 9 to 5 to be successful and all that stuff, which you don't. But I'm saying that's become more popular, and obviously you want to, if you can, start as early as you can, because obviously the sooner you start, the more wealth you can build throughout your life. If you start later, not that you can't make money still, but again, you're behind. You may be 5, 10, 15 years behind a person that started in their late teens, early 20s, having ownership of whatever it is, whether it's a business, whether it's, I guess obviously in this case, whether it's a team, whether it's a product, whatever. Ownership is key, especially nowadays where you can monetize a lot of different things, especially through social media. Though I guess we'll kind of see what happens whenever this fades out, because eventually, I would think, I could be wrong, maybe Instagram, Twitter, TikTok will be around for forever, but you would think these social media sites will die out and eventually get replaced by something. So just kind of, what's the next big thing? And obviously, if you didn't know about TikTok, TikTok is like that next big thing now. I mean, it was mainly like in China before, now it was kind of circulated all over. It's sort of kind of not really a repeat of Vine, if you remember Vine, which is just like, it was like short videos. Obviously, this is longer videos. That's one aspect of it that makes it can make it a little bit better, because then you can do more stuff than obviously you can do in 6 seconds. And I think it was kind of the rebranded from Musical.ly, which is just basically like an app where you could just like do like funny things with music behind it. And obviously that's what TikTok is more or less, but there's more stuff you can do. But yeah, just like having the foresight to see like, all right, I know Twitter is popping, I know Instagram's popping, but what's next? And if you were on top of TikTok, you would know that that's what was next. Or you were on top of like the social media apps that you know what's next, especially with the kids, because the kids love anything they can do a silly dance to or do a voiceover for or whatever. So that was the next big one. But yeah, so like I said, it's just cool to see LaMelo thinking like that already at a young age. Obviously, he's with the help of his manager, but that's cool to see. And obviously, the love and care he seems to have for the Australian community, wherever this team was located in Australia, is nice to see as well. Because again, like I said, he could have just used it as a pit stop and then just be done with it. Because again, in theory, all he's trying to do is just get to the NBA. So once he went through there, and then boom, he's on to the NBA, and he didn't have to worry about the NBL anymore. But I'm glad to see that he enjoyed his time there, appreciated them welcoming him with open arms, and he's willing to give back to the community in any way he can. And if that means having to help a team out that's maybe facing some sort of financial troubles and make sure they can run as optimally as it can, that's cool. That's cool to see. Like I said, we'll have to see if it goes through, but just the thought process behind it is pretty interesting. And obviously, like I said, it's a big deal for him because, I mean, imagine if there's a player in the NBA that owns a foreign basketball team. That's unheard of. And obviously, I mean, the Ball brothers have been doing things a little bit unheard of, for better or worse, since they kind of came on the scene. But I mean, it's just like I said, it's cool. And then obviously, if he's talented, that'll only make it better and only make it other people have realized. Because again, that's what part of this is for, is realizing that this is a realistic avenue for different players to make. They don't have to do the traditional go through the AAU circuit, go to a high school, go run through all the high school stuff, still do the AAU circuit, then go to a college for 1 year, and then go to NBA. They don't have to do that. Though I think the NBA is talking about maybe lowering the draft age again, so we could go back to straight out of high school, so you wouldn't have to worry about the college stuff. But and for the time being, that's the path that basically everybody takes. So if there's a ways to see that, I can do this way as opposed to doing it this way, I think it's just a cool thing. So hopefully it works out for LaMelo. Like I said, he seems like a cool kid. He seems to always have a solid head on his shoulders from afar. I don't know him personally, but from afar it seemed like that. And not obviously, but I think LeVar was always talking about him as potentially being the best of the three brothers. So if that turns out to be true, that only makes all this plan that much better. Because again, the stuff with LeBron only works if LeBron was so great. The stuff with Zion will only work if Zion is great. Like that, at the end of the day, the hype and the name and whatever, that only gets you so far. You still need to be good. The reason why LeBron is as big as he is because obviously he was a star from when he was in high school, but then he probably then has a lot of success at the professional level. If he kind of just was like, all right, or okay, then obviously he wouldn't be the star, he wouldn't have the influence, he wouldn't have the power, wouldn't be able to do all the different things and work in the different businesses and projects he's able to work on because, again, no one would care as much. But when you're the biggest star, one of the biggest stars in the world, and maybe outside of Steph Curry, probably the biggest star in the NBA, if not the biggest, you have the ability to do things like that because people are interested in what you're working on or what you're doing outside of the court or outside of the arena, whatever you want to word it. So, like I said, if LaMelo can do these cool things in the Australian community and also be good on the court, then that'll just make his point even that much better and make things that much easier for the next generation in order to follow in his footsteps. So we'll see how that goes, but that's just, like I said, it was a cool thing for him, something he didn't have to do. But he did it, or he's trying to do it, I should say. And like I said, hopefully it works out for him because that'd be dope. That'd be really dope. So yeah. So speaking of people taking chances and being hopefully seizing opportunities, as the Melo's hoping to do with this deal to buy the team, there is an NFL player that was out of the league for some years now that is now back, and we'll talk about who that is. Even though if I give you one guess, you could probably figure the team that he would be back with. So we'll talk about him being back, what that kind of means, kind of how he got here, because again, he's had an interesting past, even if he should be allowed back in the league. I know some people are probably going to feel that way as well. like I said, and how it could or could not affect the team on the field of play next season, assuming, hoping, and praying that we have a season. So we'll talk about all that stuff right after the break. Stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
So, if you didn't know, I know this is going to be a name, a little flash from the past, if you will, because this name, again, has been out of the league for almost 5 seasons now, so no one mentioned him too much, but Aldon Smith, former defensive end of the Niners and the Raiders, is now a member of the Dallas Cowboys. Aldon Smith has confirmed, this is from Yahoo, I'm reading this article off Yahoo Sports, but again, you go to any major sports outlet that covers football, and it'll be on there if you want to look at it. Aldon Smith has confirmed he has signed with the Cowboys 5 years after he played his last NFL snap. The 30-year-old defensive end, first-round pick for the San Francisco 49ers 9 years ago, had 33 sacks between 2011 and 2012, the most of any player across their first 2 NFL seasons. However, off-the-field problems belied Smith, and he was arrested for driving under the influence 3 times during his time with the Niners, who cut him in 2015. He was signed by the Raiders and played 9 games in his first season, but Smith was suspended indefinitely by the NFL for violating the league's substance abuse and personal conduct policies. And he sat out the entire 2016-2017 seasons. In 2018, shortly after Smith was named as a suspect in a domestic violence incident, the Raiders released the defensive end. However, Smith is now set to return to the NFL, having agreed to a reported 1-year deal up to $4 million with the Cowboys. Smith, who would need to be reinstated by the NFL officially before the contract can begin. I guess, you need that. But though Dallas is apparently confident that that'll happen. And put an Instagram post saying life is good, he's a Cowboy, all that fun stuff. So yeah, this is an interesting one. Though, if you know the Cowboys and you know the way Jerry Jones runs things, is it that surprising? Not really. We're talking about a team that signed Greg Hardy post the whole domestic violence situation while he was with Carolina. Has given Randy Gregory, who had issues, again, mainly weed, but issues dating back to, where did he come? He came from Nebraska. Randy Gregory. He came from, what was it? Nebraska, I think. I'm trying to double check this. Yeah, he came from Nebraska. Like I said, he had some off-the-field issues there. I think he was even late to the draft, or missed a draft workout or draft meeting or something. It was just a mess with him. No, I think nothing about it. He failed a drug test at the draft. That's what it was, which is obviously a disaster. But now, you won't be tested for weed, so that is unfortunate for him. And so he might still have a decent NFL career if not for that. Kept David Irving around for similar things. Again, this is not, though, also doesn't just have substance abuse didn't have just, I shouldn't say does, because I don't know if he still does currently. He had substance abuse issues in the past. I think he got arrested for a couple of DUIs. So then they have to do that. Then obviously he was involved in domestic violence case too. So that is interesting. Just because obviously he wasn't really playing in the league at the time of this incident. But I know a lot of people are very outspoken, and rightfully so, about players that have domestic violence cases come up against them, and about how many people believe they shouldn't be allowed back in the league, which, again, to each their own. I understand both sides of that argument, because, again, you want to give people second chances, but also, again, these people don't get second chances if they are convicted of these crimes outside of court. They'll just go to jail for however long it's deemed they are meant to be in jail. And then they'll go from there. So, that's it. There is that. But yeah, again, if you're looking at a team that was going to do something like this, the Cowboys make total sense. Because, again, Jerry Jones is very willing and very, is very willing to look past some things as long as you have some skill on the field. Like I said, if you have some sort of skill on the field, you are more than welcome to be a part of the Cowboys. It doesn't really matter what sort of off-the-field stuff you've had. I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, because, again, I don't think they would. You couldn't just do anything. But, again, they're a little bit more relaxed in terms of they are willing to look past some things is a little bit harsh, but they are willing to accept some things that other people would not accept. I mean, again, there's a reason why Aldon Smith hadn't been in the league for almost 5 seasons. People, I guess, because I think the biggest thing, and like people always say, and this kind of deals with injuries, but I guess it can extend to off the field stuff as well, is the best ability is availability. And if I can't trust you to be not suspended, then how can you be a part of my organization? How can you be a part of my team? What kind of example is that setting? If I have a guy who is, like I said, is constantly dealing with the laws, constantly getting suspended, constantly involved with different things, like how can I trust you to be there for me every Sunday after Sunday? So, like I said, it'd be cool if he's able to get his, I can't judge him from afar. I don't know exactly what he went through, but is able to get back on track in the regard of being able to stay in the league without getting suspended. That would be cool for him, and obviously this would just be a cool story. And then obviously from a Cowboys perspective, it'd be good for them because they lost their main pass rusher outside of, opposite of, I should say, DeMarcus Lawrence and Robert Quinn, who's now a member of the Bears. So they need to find a way to replace him. And I think they have Jim Tom Sula as a defensive line coach now. And I believe he was with the 49ers when Aldon Smith was there. Obviously, again, this is a much younger, much fresher Aldon Smith, though. Maybe he'll be fresh. He hasn't played in how many ever seasons. But yeah, so I think he had his best years the first 2 years. He had 14 sacks and 19.5 sacks his first 2 seasons. Was a first-team All-Pro, Pro Bowl in his second year in the league, which, I mean, obviously, you have 19.5 sacks, you're going to make an All-Pro team and the Pro Bowl, so that's not surprising. But, like I said, it's been a while since he's been playing at all, and then obviously it's been a while since he's played at that level. So we'll be able to see if he were able to recapture some of that magic with him, though I will say it sends a weird message to me because you're willing to take a chance, reach out and sign a contract with this guy, and yet your starting franchise quarterback there's still no deal that's been reached. Again, that doesn't mean that they won't reach a deal at some point, but the fact that they're willing to go out and sign this guy and take a chance on him, but they're not willing to meet Dak's demands, and for all I know, maybe Dak's demands are otherworldly, and they're just like no logical reason to accept what his demands are. But at the same time, again, there's a going rate for quarterbacks that is extremely high, and it's only going to get higher once the likes of Deshaun Watson and mainly Patrick Mahomes, but even with that, Deshaun Watson get their deals. So it's not going to get cheaper as it goes on. It's only going to get more expensive the more people that sign the deal, because it seems like, again, when you have these young guys, they always seem to one up the highest salary. And it sounds like the report is that Dak wants to get paid $35 million. Is that a lot for Dak Prescott, in my opinion? Yes. Because I'm not actually sure how much of a difference maker he is per se. Like, obviously, he's going to win you more games than he's going to lose you, but like when the going gets tough, is he a guy that consistently you can count on to be like, all right, we have Dak Prescott, I think we're going to win this game? Or is it because of the auxiliary pieces around him? Which, I mean, again, there's a little bit of both to that. Again, football's not a one-man game. You need help. You can't just go out there and win a game by himself. But then obviously when he does, now he has all these wins, and people like to credit him for all the wins he's got over his first 4 years. But then at the same time, you could argue he's not even the most important player on his team. So just like, how much credit could you or should you give to quarterbacks for the amount of wins that they have when, again, there's a lot of other factors that go into winning a game than just how good or bad the quarterback played. I mean, defense has to show up, the other players around him have to play well, the coaches have to call a good game. Like I said, you got to capitalize on the other team's mistakes, all this stuff that can happen that doesn't directly tie back to the quarterback, but it ties back to them when they're doing bad. I mean, I take that back. It doesn't always tie back to them when things are going bad. Like, people make excuses for them when things are going bad, but then when it's going great, now they deserve all the credit, as if other guys around them aren't helping them elevate their game. Or maybe, I mean, that's what some people argue, that there are things such as force multipliers where people can make the people around them better. I don't really believe in that philosophy. Like I said, everybody in the NFL has some level of skill, so you're helping. It's a two-way street. They're helping you just as much as you're helping them to a degree. But yeah, like I said, it could be a weird dynamic. I'm not saying it is. It could be a weird dynamic where you're willing to take a chance on a guy that hasn't played football in 5 years or in 4 to 5 seasons, but you're not willing to go all in on your franchise quarterback. Maybe it's just me, but it seems a little backwards. Now, like I said, if Aldon Smith can return to at least something resembling his Pro Bowl stuff, I'm not expecting him to go out there and get 20 sacks this year. Though, I mean, you never know. I mean, Robert Quinn, I think, had, 11 sacks? Something like that, 11 and a half, somewhere around there. So they can get 7, 8 sacks out of him. All right, that was well worth the 1 year, the chance. And now, again, the only downside of this is that if you're expecting him to be an important part of your defense and then he goes out and gets suspended or something again, or, like I said, he still has to officially get reinstated. So I guess, there's probably will, but there's a chance he might not, so you got to deal with that as well. I'm saying you run the risk of him kind of dealing with the situation and having to go back, get suspended, or be kicked off the team again, because that's the thing that's happened to him. This wouldn't be a new occurrence. So, like I said, you put a lot of risk and a lot of faith in a guy that hasn't really shown that he can be completely trusted at this point. But again, we'll see. We'll see how it works. Hopefully, like I said, I'm all for second chances and good stories. So hopefully it works out for him. Even though, again, obviously his past is a little checkered. But if he's clean now, if he's good now, if his domestic violence stuff is behind him, if the substance abuse is behind him, then, hey, we'll see. See what happens again on the field. I'm not, depending on the circumstances. Like the Gray Harvey situation, I was like, I don't understand why he's in the league. Like certain circumstances, I'm like, don't give you guys second chances. There's no reason for, again, the Ray Rice thing. I was like, yeah, nah, he got to go. You can't have people like that roaming around in the league. And you can classify Aldon Smith as one of those people, but he's back in the league now. There's not much I can do about it. So I'm not going to tell them. I'm not going to say he should be kicked off the team now. I wouldn't have signed him if I were the GM or owner of the Cowboys. But hey, like I said, to each his own. I would have tried to find someone a little bit more reliable personally. But hey, like I said, who knows? Maybe he turned his life around. He can get back and be helpful, and that's really all the Cowboys want, and that's all the Cowboys need. So, like I said, we'll see if it works out for them. We'll know sooner than later. But yeah, so after this next, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss. There's been a lot of old games being replayed on different channels from different leagues, whether it's the NBA, NFL, even college sports, and that was a big one tonight. They were replaying, well, again, this being Thursday, they were replaying the Texas and USC Rose Bowl game from 2006, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I'm just going to dig into that one, talk about if it is really the greatest game ever, in college football at least. It's very much argued. But also, I guess, so I just want to give my opinions on that, see how I feel, and let's talk about what I literally remember from that game, because obviously I was younger. I was like 10 or 11 at the time, but I do remember it pretty fondly. So we'll talk about that game and kind of like the memories and, like I said, how good the game itself actually was right after the break. So stay tuned.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So yeah, Texas, USC 2006 Rose Bowl, obviously the culmination of the 2005 season, was for all the Marlboros. I'd like to say it was number one versus number two, a team in USC that I think was had won back-to-back national championships, was coming off of, coming into the game at a 34-game win streak, if I remember correctly, versus a Texas team who, again, had good players in its own right, but on paper didn't necessarily match up with a USC team of this caliber. But that was until Vince Young decided he wasn't going to allow them to lose. And I mean, that's another aspect of it that can be discussed, and I guess I will discuss. And this is just how this is arguably one of the greatest single game performances by any player in college football, especially given the stage, given the circumstances, given what he was going up against. I mean, the man had in that game threw 40 times, had 30 completions, 267 yards. All right, that's whatever. It also had 19 carries for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns as a quarterback, again, to upset the dynasty USC team with the national championship on the line, and scored the game-winning touchdown with a whopping 19 seconds left. On 4th down, mind you. So yeah, like I'm saying, this game had just about everything you wanted. It was 41-38, so I guess it had everything but defense. If you're a defensive guy, that's not really your thing. Though they did, I know Matt Leinart got picked off once, which is and then they had the big Reggie Bush fumble on the lateral, which was foolish. That kind of annoyed me, because I don't remember exactly who I was going for at the time, but I do know I was a big Reggie Bush guy. I still think he's one of the greatest college players ever. That I think it was against Fresno State, the long touchdown where we cut back across the field along the side, did a back juke, had the guys fly by, then cut back. One of the wilder things that not one of the wilds, but just one of the more electrifying things I can remember. And obviously he was great during his time in college. It's unfortunate he had to give his Heisman back because that was foolishness. Again, all right, he took a little extra. He took a little money. That doesn't warrant giving the Heisman back to me, but whatever. Like I said, I think it was Bo Monty Jones has made this point. Or made this joke before, just about how if I have something like that, he was just making the point that they were have to come and get that Heisman. Basically, I'm not just going to be oh, all right, yeah, you know what, guys, you're right. I messed up. Here's the Heisman back. They're all right, if you think I really did something wrong, come and get it. So I always thought that was fun, just because again, when you have award situations like that, where you're crowned one of the best or the best player in your field, or the best player in college football at the time, and you're just willing to give up the trophy, it's I don't know if I'd be willing to give it up that easy. But this game featured everything. Had, like I said, had all the points, was obviously great moments, great action. Was in a prime game. I think that also kind of adds to is the Rose Bowl's arguably the pinnacle bowl game. Obviously, it's different now because, well, not different now, but it's different because like the national championship rotates. So it's not the Rose Bowl isn't always the biggest game, but it's always one of the. You can argue it's the most notable bowl game every bowl season, no matter who's in it. Just because of like the history and the lore behind it, and obviously and I was reading through this article about like some things you may not remember about that game, and one of the things was that Keith Jackson, who did quite a lot of college football games, it was actually his last game, so that's interesting that or I guess that's fitting, as they say, that it was arguably the greatest game of all time that he got the call for his last one as a guy who was obviously very synonymous with college football during that time period. Obviously, like I said, I was a little too young to know just how synonymous he was with it, but it's like I said, it's cool for him. What else? Like I said, it featured the top 3 players in Heisman voting, which is like obviously that's very rare. In the 2005 Heisman balloting, Bush won the trophy. Vince Young finished runner-up, and Leinart finished third, though he had won the Heisman the previous year, so obviously it's very hard to go back-to-back with that kind of stuff. I mean, that's rare. That rarely ever happens, if ever. Like, I mean, there's very rarely games where the top 2 guys compete against each other, let alone the top 3 guys are all featured in the same game. Like, that doesn't happen that often, if ever. And obviously, those guys were all great that year. Bush had 2,200 scrimmage yards and 18 touchdowns. Leinart threw for 3,800 yards and 28 touchdowns, and Vince Young had 33,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, and added another 1,012 on the ground. So, again, all these guys were great. Apparently, Vince Young said he felt slighted by Reggie Bush winning, and then obviously maybe added some extra fuel to the fire in that game. And that also, again, that's another storyline to add into it that helped make the game as important and as impactful and as good as it was the fact that, again, featured such great talent in that game. And like to extend off that, apparently in that game there were 61 players who eventually be drafted by an NFL team over the next 4 seasons, 37 from USC and 24 from Texas. Only 10 of them ever ended up being Pro Bowls. So as we all know, college players don't always pan out in the NFL. It's just like, it's not that easy. But I mean, that's not just an NFL thing. That's a NBA thing. That's a anywhere thing. Not every as you get older, or as you go up in level, the talent gets better, and it's not a guarantee that you will be as successful as you once were. But obviously, that's a cool thing just to see how many future, not even just future stars, but just future NFL players in general that were on that field at the same time. Because that's another very rare aspect of it. So again, as much as it is an upset, because USC was obviously the more star-studded and obviously the more, I guess you could say, top to bottom talented team. Texas was no slouch. I mean, they were number 2 team in the country for a reason, and undefeated going into that game for a reason. And obviously that's another part of that attitude, was both these teams were undefeated, obviously coming into that game. So that adds to it. And apparently, according to this article from Sporting News, which was released a few hours ago, this is the last meeting of the top 2 teams wire to wire in college football. Not apparently. Obviously, if USC was coming on a 34-game win streak, they weren't ever going to relinquish the number 1 spot. And I guess Texas, again, if they started at 2 and then they went undefeated, there's no reason to drop them. That's a very rare thing that doesn't really happen that often. Even like the matchups of Alabama and Clemson, or Clemson and LSU the past couple of years, apparently no teams have ever started, like maybe Clemson started at 3, or Alabama started at 2 or 3 or whatever. Like very rarely does the number 1, number 2 teams coming to the year end up being the teams that make it to the end. So that's another cool aspect of it, is the fact that these are the 2 best teams coming into the year that people thought, and then they proved to be true. And then obviously when you always hope when you get the 2 best teams in the country, you provide a great game, and that was obviously a great game. So, I just remember, I'm trying to remember who I was rooting for at that time. I know, like I said, I like Reggie Bush, but I was also a little bit of a Vince Young guy. I obviously had no ties to either school per se. I just liked good players, which I mean, all of us do. But I don't remember being that disappointed when USC won. So maybe I was kind of tired of USC. I was like, all right, let me hope somebody else wins. And now, like I said, Vince Young was great that year and was great in that game. So I was probably a little bit more on the Texas side of things for that specific game. Not Pacific. That specific game. And then I was, like I said, any game that includes a last-minute touchdown is sensational. So, like I said, I mean, you could argue... That's why I like the Alabama-Clemson championship that Deshaun Watson, when we threw the touchdown pass to Hunter Renfrow. That was great. The comeback, the Tua game, where he came back and brought the team back from being down, and also threw the game-winning touchdown to, I think it was Devontae Smith. Against Georgia. That game was great. Another game that kind of goes under the radar. It was the best games ever because, again, it just featured two good teams in that year. Was the Rose Bowl of 20... It was the Penn State USC Rose Bowl game with like the Sam Darnold, Trace McSorley, Saquon, Chris Godwin, like that game where it was like, oh wow, Sam Darnold might be the number 1 overall pick. I remember watching that game because obviously I have ties to Penn State. I remember watching the game and thinking like, wow, Sam Darnold's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen. If you haven't watched that game, because again or maybe you watched it during bowl season, you just don't remember it. If you haven't watched that game recently, please watch that game again. There are so many different plays and throws that Sam Darnold makes where you're just like, oh my goodness, this guy's going to be amazing. Like this guy could win the Heisman next year because again, he was a redshirt freshman coming into that season and lit Penn State's defense up. I mean, there was nothing he could do with them. There was nothing they could do with him. So again, that's another sneaky one for one of the best games I've ever seen. Obviously, I had ties to that one, but again, just watching it, it was an entertaining game until Trace McSorley threw a late interception that led to a game-winning field goal, if I remember correctly. I tried to repress that game from my memory a little bit, but I remember watching it and obviously even looking back on it. That's one of those under-the-radar ones, because again, it's not for a national championship, doesn't really have the same, just for bragging rights. I mean, you still get the Rose Bowl trophy, but still more so for bragging rights, obviously. The games with national championships on the line mean more. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch that one. That game was amazing. But what else? Apparently, Texas has been aiming for USC all year, which obviously makes, again, the win that much sweeter. I think Mac Brown, as a coach, confirmed this in a 2017 interview with Sporting News. He said once Texas beat Oklahoma 45-12 that season, the team's entire focus geared towards USC. Brown recalls all that too. After victory against Colorado, Texas players cheered USC's victory against Notre Dame on the legendary Bush Push game. Brown knew the game was coming by then. He delivered an unorthodox message to the players. It's one that he didn't get made public, which obviously would have been much harder in the social media era. It's easier in 2005, 2006. That kind of stuff not to leak out. He said, keep your mouth shut, but play each week like you're playing USC. Brown said, we actually played the last part of the season against USC, so that's pretty cool. That they were like, this is a game, obviously USC just trying to win, go for the three-peat, all that stuff, but I find it funny that Texas was able to go at USC and strive for USC all season, and obviously when they got the chance, because many teams you know, it's those old adage of be careful what you wish for, and a lot of teams wish they could play, or like last time, like we want Bama, like over the last couple of years, and then they get Bama, and then it's just a disaster. So yes, I respect Texas for wishing and hoping to get USC all season, and then obviously when they got their chance, going out and doing the thing. But yeah, like I said, this is, if you didn't watch it, it's unfortunate. When they replayed it again, this was Thursday night, so like I said, if you're hearing this now and you missed it, then you missed it. But like I said, that's a game you can easily go back and watch again, and it's just, I imagine most of you guys have already watched it, but if you haven't, for whatever reason, if you're a little bit younger, go back and watch that game. It's, like I said, it's one of the greatest games, if not the greatest game in college football of all time. Like I said, there's names you're going to recognize, obviously Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Clay Matthews, Brian Cushing. I think Mark Sanchez was on the bench for that one. You got Vince Young, Jamal Charles, Cole McCoy. Like obviously Pete Carroll was the coach, Lane Kiffin was the offensive coordinator, Mac Brown was the Texas coach. Like I'm saying, there's a lot of names, there's a lot of intrigue, there's a lot of storylines that went to that game. And then obviously, like I said, when you win a game on the last, not necessarily the last play, he scored with he scored with 90 seconds left, but the fourth down play was with 26 seconds left, and it's fourth and 5, and you're inside the red zone. And even though they called a pass play, I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody knew Vince Young was going to run it, apparently except USC, because they didn't have anybody to contain him. But yeah, I mean, they were down 12 with 5 minutes left. They scored, cut the lead, they were to get a stop. And then obviously Vince Young did his thing and cemented himself as one of the greatest players, or cemented one of the greatest performances any of us have ever seen in a championship game or just a game in general, especially on that kind of stage. So, like I said, if you haven't, go back and watch that game. And like I said, it was back and forth all game. Obviously, like I said, the Texans have to make a little comeback, but like I said, it's one of some of the moments in college football history. It was the highest rated BCS game in TV history, I believe. Like I said, great performances, great players, all that stuff. So, yeah, it was even rated number 1 on Bleacher Report's top 25 greatest college football games, and ESPN ranked it the first out of 105 games that decided college football championships. That I guess they did in honor of this past season. So, like I said, if you haven't seen it, you're missed out. So you might as well go back and rewatch. That's all I'm saying. Go back and watch it if you haven't already, because it was a great game, and it's going to be one that people are going to be talking about 50 years from now. As long as college football exists, people will be talking about that game. So why not join in on the fun? That's what I'm saying. Why not join in on the fun? Speaking of fun, we're going to do another little top 5 in this episode. The last episode, I did the top 5 NFC quarterbacks, and this episode, I'm going to do a top 5 AFC quarterbacks, just to balance it out. And I will say, when I was looking through the quarterbacks in the AFC, it's pretty top heavy. Let me say that. Like last episode, there was more of a debate about different guys you could have in the top 5. This time, you go through the different teams, you're just like, you get past number 3, and you're just like, I'm kind of stuck. So yeah, we'll work through that, and like I said, I'll go work through my top 5 and who I have in there, but like I said, it was much, much harder than I thought it should be. And not in like the good way, where it's like, oh, it was a tough debate. Like, no, it was hard. I couldn't figure out who was that good in the AFC. So, like I said, we'll talk about that right after the break. Stay tuned.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
So yeah, the top 5 quarterbacks in the AFC. Like I said, I could probably run through the top 3 pretty quickly, just because those names are going to be pretty much solid. That there's maybe a debate in the order per se, but those 3 are going to be rock solid, like stuck in there. They're going to be they should be in everybody's top 5, I guess, unless you're a person that believes a certain quarterback in the AFC should have been a receiver when he came out. But if you don't believe that, which you shouldn't, again, because he won an MVP, then you're going to have these same 3 guys in the top 3. But after that, like I said, especially with Brady now out of the picture, gets just a wee bit tricky. So normally I would go 5-1, but this time I'm going to start at 1 because, again, like there's not as much of a debate at the top. So 1, to me, still Patrick Mahomes. I've talked about it on this podcast. numerous times how I think he's the best quarterback in the league, bar none. Obviously, again, there's people that are close to him. He's not like it's not like a huge gap, but there is a gap, I think, between him and the next quarterback. Whether that's Russell Wilson, whether you think it's Lamar Jackson, whether you think it's somebody else, Drew Brees. Like I think it's Mahomes and it's everybody else. I don't think that's wild to say. I don't think that's unfair to say. I just think, based on what he's done his 2 years as a starter, there's not really much you can say contrary to that, in my personal opinion. Now, I'm more than welcome to a healthy debate on this topic, but again, I don't really see how you can have one. Like I said, based on what he's done, throwing for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns his first year as a starter, getting to the AFC Championship game, and being D4 lining up on sides away from going to Super Bowl, then coming back this next year, missing a couple games due to injury, coming back based on only missed 2, still throwing for 4,000 yards, and then putting together a very, very, very impressive playoff run, and then win the Super Bowl and a comeback. Like I'm saying, there's not really much more you can say about what he's done to start his career, at least. Obviously, again, I'm not going to go on and say he's TBE, the best ever, shot to Drake. But yeah, you're not going to go that far yet. But again, he's on that trajectory at the very least. He's getting over the hurdles that would allow him to become that. But again, I guess we'll have to wait and see how that goes. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But yeah, so he's 1. 2 and 3 can be debated depending on how you feel about either of these guys. I'll still go Lamar at 2 just because, again, 1 MVP. And does what Deshaun Watson can do, maybe a little bit better, especially as a runner. And again, Deshaun Watson's a very good runner. But obviously, Lamar Jackson's one of, if not the most electrifying player with the ball in his hands. So hard to argue against that, in my personal opinion. And then, like I said, he won an MVP. No offense to Deshaun Watson, who's been great since he's been in the league. He's never been at a level where people are like, oh yeah, I think halfway, or the way through the season, he's a legitimate MVP candidate. He's a good quarterback, but never had that. So because of that, then you got to put Lamar at 2. Then that would leave Deshaun Watson at 3. Obviously, again, great player. Has had great seasons. We'll see how he adapts now with no DeAndre Hopkins, because that obviously is being a big part of his success. I mean, it's when you have one of the best receivers in the league, that obviously aids in your success, especially when you have a guy like Will Fuller, who, unfortunately for him, has had to miss some time due to injuries over the course of his career, and various injuries. Not like it's just always the same thing, which probably makes it worse. But yeah, so now you gotta figure out what their plan is there. So you gotta figure that out. So then, after you get past those 3, is where it gets tricky. Because if you run through, because I did this, if you run through the divisions, all right, you got the AFC West, you got Mahomes, but outside of Mahomes, you got Derek Carr, right now Tyrod Taylor, maybe Cam, we'll see, or potentially a rookie, and Drew Lock, who again looked good at the end of the season, but new offensive coordinator, all that stuff. We'll see if he's the guy to take that year 2 leap from his draft class. In the AFC North, you got Lamar, reigning MVP. You got Baker, who people thought was going to be good this year and disappointed, to say the least. So we'll see if he was able to bounce back, or if that's just kind of who he is now. You got Big Ben, question mark. He's obviously coming off an injury, especially with an elbow. It's always a little iffy for me. Any sort of arm injury to a quarterback or a pitcher is always going to be scary to me, just because, especially when they're older, it's just you don't know how the body's going to react, and if he does come back, will he be as good or be able to throw the ball as far or have the same strength that he had before? Don't really know that, so it's hard for me to put him in the top 5. He might be a guy that would have been in the top 5 normally, but again, haven't seen him play in a year. A little dicey. Then you got whoever the Bengals draft, which should be Joe Burrow. We'll see if they fall in love with Tua or Justin Herbert, or even if they trade down and then there is a situation where they don't get either of them. I don't know. We'll see. But the Bengals are going to have a new quarterback, I think, next year. Even, like I said, even Justin Herbert maybe. So you got that. AFC East, I mean, the best quarterback is probably Josh Allen, question mark. Because Patriots, we don't know what their situation is. They got Stidham and Brian Hoyer right now. That's not it. I mean, their quarterback is probably still going to be in college. Their quarterback of the future is still going to be playing in college this year, and potentially Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields. So you got Josh Allen, who, again, is decent. He's like big body, strong arm, not really all that accurate. Even on the deep ball, not really all that accurate. He's a good runner, but has some fumble issues. And will inadvertently pitch the ball back sometimes when he feels like it, a la Reggie Bush. Funny how that, see how it comes around. But yeah, so you got to worry about that. He did it in the playoff game against the Texans. That was almost a disaster. Then you got Sam Darnold, who was supposed to be better than he was this past year, though. Again, obviously the mono kind of messed him up a little bit. And now he doesn't have Robbie Anderson. See how much that matters. No, they signed Perryman, but I don't know if it'll be the same, if the fit will work the same. And then whoever the Dolphins draft, probably Tua. He could easily be the best quarterback in that division if he's healthy within 2 seasons. Then you go to the AFC South, who has Deshaun, who has Ryan Tannehill, who has Phillip Rivers? No. And then you got Gardner Minshew. So yeah, when you run through the list, it's not the same. The NFC looks. The names are strong. Like I said, when I put Tom Brady in that 5, you could argue for 3 other guys to easily be in that 5 slot. And Dak, Jimmy G, and Kirk Cousins. You could easily argue for them going into this past season based off last year. You could easily argue them being in the top 5, and no one would be that mad. In my opinion, I think you could make a legitimate argument for either of those guys. And like I said, that's not the case. I'm scratching and clawing to get this 5th one. I think you got to put Tannehill at 4, which is kind of nuts to say Ryan Tannehill's a top 5 quarterback in your conference. But based solely on last year, I don't know how you can't. Now, that doesn't mean that he's going to be able to repeat that. That's kind of been the story of his career, is a little bit of inconsistency. But if he can, even to a degree, last year he was sensational. In the 10 games he played in, actually led him to getting a big deal. Won 2 playoff games, actually. So if you're one of those guys that cares about that, that's cool. 7-3 as a starter. 70% completion percentage, almost 3,000 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 picks, 2,700 yards. Not that close to 3,000. Had 9.6 yards per attempt, 13.6 yards per completion, a passer rating of 117.5. Now again, the team's dependent, and their offense depended on Derrick Henry, but what they needed Tannehill to do, he did, and he did exceptionally well. So there's no real way to say you can't have him at 4, in my personal opinion. And then that leaves 5, and it's just who am I taking? Big Ben can't do it again because he was hurt all last year. Don't know what he's going to look like when he comes back. Phillip Rivers was bad last year. Again, if not for James, people would be talking more about how many turnovers and interceptions that he threw. Because again, if the Chargers, another team, if they just had a little bit better quarterback play, they'd probably win 2 or 3 more games, and they're not picking in the top 10. So there's that. Like I said, other teams that make the playoffs. You got Josh Allen, Darnold, Baker. Who else? Drew Lock. It's you're looking in the slim pickings as you go through the division. You could make a legitimate argument that within 2 years, because again, the 3 guys at the top are pretty young, so they're probably going to stay there. Within 2 years, Tua and Joe Burrow, if they go to the Dolphins and Bengals respectively, could very well be in the top 5 in quarterbacks in that division. In that conference. Like I said, within 2 years. You can make that argument. There's not that many people standing in their way. Essentially, Big Ben will be gone. Potentially, Phil Rivers will be gone. Unless, Baker or Drew Lock or Darnold or one of those guys takes a leap. There's a legitimate case that you could make that Joe Burrow and Tua could be in the top 5 at their position in that conference very, very soon. Which is not something you can say about most rookies. Most rookies aren't expected to be one of the best quarterbacks in that conference in the second year. They think it's supposed to be good. Maybe best quarterback in the division. But in the conference, that's not a thing you would expect to be saying year 2, year 3 of a quarterback's career. Oh, I mean, maybe I know. Maybe for those guys, they're high draft picks, but again, there's not something that's a common theme for a guy to be that good and that elite at his position that soon. But like I said, the AFC quarterbacks are slim picking, so I mean, you could probably just pick a name out of a hat and it'll work. I think for my sake, I guess I'll go Derek Carr, ? Though, I mean, he could lose his job to Marcus Mariota, so I don't know how I feel about that. But even last year, threw for over 4,000 yards, had 21 touchdowns, which isn't that high, but I mean, hey, it's better than nothing. I've been to the Pro Bowl 3 times, did not know that. I mean, again, Pro Bowls, like, whatever. You just get it because people turn it down. The one year, 2015, was on, I think 2016 was he? Yeah, 2016 was the year he was on his way to potentially being an MVP. Had the Raiders at 12-3 before he got hurt. Threw for almost 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 6 picks, and like I said, in those 15 games, even though obviously he missed some time. Had back-to-back 4,000-yard seasons, threw for 21-8 this past year, with the pass rating over 100, completion percentage at 70. So yeah, I guess I'll go with Derek Carr with the Josh Allen as the honorable mention, because at least he, like I said, he got his team to the playoffs. He's gotten better, but though his accuracy still not that great. But like I said, picking's very slim in the AFC right now. Very slim. Like if you look at the AFC and look at the NFC, you're like, wow, there are so many more good quarterbacks in the NFC. Like I said, even this past year, he didn't even complete. Josh Allen didn't complete 60% of his passes. Threw for a little over 3,000 yards in 16 games. 20 touchdowns, 9 picks, so that's not that bad compared to the 10 touchdowns, 12 picks from the year before. But let me see if I can find the fumbles. That was really his bugaboo, if you will. He had, does it not show? He had 14 fumbles this past year. Not great. Though he had 9 rushing touchdowns, I believe, so there is that. But again, go on to 14 fumbles, that won't get the job done ever. So, and I said, Josh Allen's probably the honorable mention here, assuming, again, I can't count Big Ben, because he'd probably be 5 if he were healthy, but he's not, so I don't feel comfortable putting him in my top 5 at the moment. So I guess it's Derek Carr, but like I said, I don't feel confident about that. He could very well drop out of that. He's not a solidified guy. But the fact that Tannehill's 4 and is like very solidly locked in at 4 heading into next season shows you with the state of quarterback play in the AFC right now. Again, not that he wasn't great last year, because he was. But when you think of best quarterbacks in the league, you don't think of Ryan Tannehill. I mean, again, maybe you could after last season, but like consistently, it's not Ryan Tannehill. It's not a common thing. So that's kind of where we're at now. And again, I can't really be mad about it because he was great last year. So Ryan Tannehill's top 5 quarterback in the AFC. Nice, something you would have expected. If I would have told you that he was going to be that at this point last year, you would have said I was lying, or I was bugging, or I was on some sort of drugs, or maybe I was sick, or I was drunk, or something. You would have said that. And you would have been right in saying that, but now, fast forward a year later, and you can't keep him out of your top 5 in the conference. Crazy how life works, huh? Really is crazy. But yeah, so, I mean, we'll see how it plays out this year again. Hoping and praying that we do have an NFL season. Hoping and praying we do have an NFL season. Which I think, I don't want to say I think we will. I don't want to get too optimistic because I'm not a doctor. I don't know how this disease is going to flow. But like I said, hopefully we will. And then with that, we can see if my rankings hold true. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. I don't claim to be an expert. I'm just a guy that likes to talk about sports. You guys are all out there that like to listen to sports. So I want to thank you guys again for listening to me talk about sports here on the GSMC Sports Podcast and presented by GSMC Podcast Network. Like I said, like I always try to remind you guys, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of our latest stuff whenever we drop it. If you could, please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. It'd be very appreciated. It's very helpful. See if you guys like, what you guys dislike, all that fun stuff. Help us improve. And also, if you're on social media, you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And you can tell me why Josh Allen is a top 5 quarterback. You can tell me why the bubble cities, the NFL is trying to implement will work. You can tell me why we shouldn't be holding the draft and we should just be pushing it back and we should not be doing anything sports related until the virus is done. I'm willing to discuss all those things with you people because obviously I have free time, seeing as there's no live sports to watch at the moment. So again, shoot those messages our way. But again, I want to thank you guys for listening. I've been Chris Blades. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day. I want to remind you to wash your hands, stay healthy, isolate, quarantine, do whatever you have to do to make sure we can flatten the curve. And if you're out there and you're a medical or you're an essential worker, whether that's doctor, a nurse, whether you're one of the people that works at any of these grocery stores that have been overrun with people the last couple of weeks, if you're a delivery man, if you work in the Amazon factories, it's still, because people are ordering stuff online, they're not like, it's not like people aren't ordering things because they can only order stuff online because they can't go anywhere. So if you're any of these people that have to continue to have to work and do things that could put you at risk of the disease, I hope you stay healthy, and I appreciate all the stuff that you're doing. And I hope you, like I said, I hope you're getting compensated properly, and I hope that no one's giving you a hard time. Because again, everyone's going through this together, so try to make it easy on as many people outside of yourself as you can, because you're not the only one dealing with this. Everyone is at the same time. So just think about it like that. But yeah, like I said, I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.